Should be topic number 1 tonight. Says African stream has been banned. The propaganda war is increasing. Before I go to the attachments, let me welcome in our brother Black Steel this week. Black Steel, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for joining us, Black Steel. So yeah, should be topic number 1. African stream has been banned. The propaganda war is increasing. This came with a few links. We'll go through them. They're all on X. This is African stream. Let me make sure you guys can see what I see. Yes. So on X or Twitter, African stream put up this post said African stream has been banned by Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We were censored after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made false, unsubstantiated claims against us on Friday. To be clear, contrary to the accusations, African Stream does not receive any funding from any state. We will shortly release a full statement regarding our work, our funding, and these accusations. We are currently consulting our legal team to figure out how best to move forward. We thank all of our loyal followers and encourage those who want to hear our Pan-African perspectives to join our Patreon and Telegram. We are also still on TikTok and X, at least for now. So this came with this video. Let me play this so you guys can. Actually, let me check something. Yeah, I'll play the video in the next prompt. But they go on to say our motivation has been, and will always be our undying commitment to Africa and African people, and our desire to see our continent liberated from the shackles of imperialism and our people treated with dignity and respect in whatever part of the globe they reside. These are the links on TikTok, Telegram, Rumble. And someone said here, I've known for quite some time that you are always being shadow banned just like me. So this is a thing that happens with a lot of pro-Black and Pan-African type of pages. This has happened to us on several occasions. So you have to watch out for that. Let me play this video from the guy who's mentioned here. This guy here. He's blinking, right? Yeah. Let me play the video from him. Let me share this screen with you guys. Let me play this video and then we'll discuss.
Goku, I don't think the sound is coming through, brother.
Oh, it's not coming through? All right, hold on. Sorry about that. This thing just gave me a notification that the sound is not connected for some damn reason. Give me a second to reshare. I apologize for that. There's no way I could know because I'm in a different tab. So, okay, so here it is. Let me make sure you guys can see what I'm seeing good. So I'll play it. It's only half a minute.
RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists. RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists.
So that's Anthony Blinken. That's the U.S. Department of State. That statement was made on the 13th of September. If you guys remember, we had a prompt a few weeks back that was talking about African streams, and that was the beginning of, well, that was the propaganda that marked the beginning of the end for African Stream on major social media platforms. Here's another post from African Stream that says, now X's, formerly Twitter, payment partner Stripe just demonetized us, so they're stopping us from making money from X. This is bizarre. Have we frightened them that much? At Elon Musk, are you allowing this because of our criticism of settler colonialism from South Africa to Israel? So this is the, I guess, message to them from Stripe, telling them that they've been demonetized. We're writing to inform you that Stripe can no longer process transactions on your account because it exceeds our present risk tolerance as determined by a combination of factors. As outlined in the Stripe service agreement, Stripe may close your account at any time for any reason by providing you notice. This communication serves as notice that effective immediately, your account for Twitter.com is closed and can no longer accept payments from customers. If you have any questions, you can contact us at any time from our support site, signed Stripe. So as the prompt suggests, as we're seeing, the propaganda war is increasing. In the chat, let me shout out a few people before I turn to my panelists. We got KW7 says Blinken is a small hat, not surprised. The matron says, you know that only the psychopaths are allowed to run propaganda. They refuse to allow any other voice to be heard, especially the Black Equals African voice. Our brother Anthony McPhail is out there in the chat. He says, peace to the panel in the chat. I'll join in a few. I appreciate that, brother. And Trigger Happy is out there saying peace. So yeah, should be topic number one. African Stream has been banned. The propaganda war is increasing. Black Steel, what did you see this during the week, and what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I saw it during the week, and I'm not surprised. It's disturbing, but it's consistent. So the idea that African Stream is taking talking points from the Kremlin, excuse me, is a long-standing U.S. State Department talking point, going back to the Civil Rights Movement. So the idea was that the Civil Rights Movement was actually funded by the Soviets during the Cold War as a way to destabilize America, and that Black people in America didn't have any real concerns. It was really the Russians gassing us up and pointing us, as if Black people were just perfectly content and perfectly happy, and that the Russians were just using Black people as a way to attack the U.S. Black people in America have always been seen almost like a revolutionary element, sort of like a fifth column, kind of like the idea that these people can be used against us. And that's kind of been the case throughout American history. Even if you go back to the War of 1812, it was Black people who led the British to the White House and helped them burn it down during the War of 1812. So the fear that a foreign enemy could use Black Americans as a way to attack America is a long-standing fear of America. And that the idea that the Russians are influencing, and think about some of the ideas they say are Kremlin talking points: reparations, police brutality, systemic problems in America. These are all things that the State Department accuses of being Kremlin talking points. And the idea that these Black people are Russian agents spreading misinformation. And he says this so confidently, and he has no information. There's no statistical information. There's no data. There's no proof. He just says it, but it's a bold-faced lie. Another example, there's a group of, there's a Black organization called Uhuru, out here in Florida, and their members have been placed on trial for, spreading Russian propaganda, working, against the U.S. as traitors to the United States. And the only thing they were saying is that the United States shouldn't be at war or shouldn't be helping fund the war in Ukraine. The United States is currently not at war with Russia. Now they're using proxies, but the United States is currently not in combat, or they haven't declared war against Russia. So with that being said, the idea that Americans can speak out against their government because they're black or because they're agents of a foreign power is very disturbing. And not to get too much into my, workers of the world bag, my freedom for all, but this is it's very, for those of us who live in the United States, who are under this so-called Constitution, this is definitely an attack against any First Amendment rights to freedom of speech that Black people supposedly have. Now, we all under reality, we don't really have these, but just the facade is now being done away with, right? It used to be they would pretend, but now they're not pretending anything anymore. Now, if they don't like what you say, oh, you're Russian, you work for Russia. It's a new Red Scare all over again. For those who might be listening, the Red Scare was a point, and at the end of the First World War, where the fear of Soviet or Russian invasion of America, everything was led by communist plots. And another thing is that, especially during that time, the communists were some of the few white people, especially in the early 20th century, who were openly in favor of civil rights and equality with Black people. So I think that all of that combined kind of shows the idea that, hey, they want to spread this lie. But in reality, it's just about keeping Africans from speaking out, Africans from having a voice. African Stream was very, very vocal about imperialism, about the wars in the Congo, in Sudan, in Palestine. They were a voice for Africans all across the diaspora. They never made a distinction of, these Black people over here, these Black people over here. They were always focused on everybody, one Africa. We all African people, and we all have to organize and unite for our liberation. So I still follow them on TikTok, and I continue to follow them. But I do think it's a concerted attack, and this is also why they want to get, the government is trying to sue to get rid of TikTok, because TikTok is not controlled by the State Department, and that's a problem for them because it's an alternative voice, not just for what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in Africa, and all over the world. They're not following the talking points that they want to hear, and it's considered a major threat. So I'll go ahead and let others speak. Thank you, Koku.
No problem. Thanks for that, Black Steel. Yeah, like Trigger Happy in the chat said, he said a few things, but one of the things he said is, but yeah, this is the natural conclusion if we are on their platform. You just have to be wary and ready pretty much. I really would like, personally, I talked about a month or two ago, even these live streams that we do here, and all the other guys who do streams, like Bakari, who's in the chat now, we could do it from our own website as opposed to and use YouTube as more of a place to kind of advertise the show in a sense, but really be streaming from our own, from our own platforms. There's a BB Toomey, but it's not. BB Toomey has a little ways to go, because one of the things I noticed, people were talking about, man, Africans need a social media, and there is a BB Toomey. I don't know if it's quite big enough, etc., but we really do need somewhere that we can be, albeit on the internet. Outdoors internet, but our own little spot. That'll be great to have. Shout out to Jose, who's out there in the chat. Shout out to Brother Bakari, who's out there in the chat, saying peace and Black African power. I'll read some more comments in a second. In the meantime, let me hear from Buana. Buana, what say you?
Yeah. So, in response to some of the things that Black Steel would have said, you know, I would just say that the job of the plantation owner is to ensure the success of the plantation by any means necessary, you know, or protect the plantation. The job is above the plant. That's his job. So when Blinken is saying the things that he's saying, he's protecting his plantation. He doesn't want it to be undermined. So there is an expectation there, regardless of the fact that they talk about on the plantation, they talk about, oh, our slaves have freedom of speech. Our slaves could walk around and have freedom of movement and all these platitudes that they issued to the rest of the world. You know, as Black Steel would have said, you know, we know these things are myths. They myths. But I think that as Koku was saying, as African people, we need to be strategic in our planning or even in our reaction to things. For instance, I think that African Stream, the servers, I don't think that it's based in America. I think that it's based out of Kenya. And I don't think that their servers are actually within the United States. I think that they're outside the United States. So if their servers are outside of the United States, that freedom of speech issue doesn't necessarily come in legally. So Blinken has a right to protect his so-called country in saying what he says, like, well, these guys are communists trying to undermine us. And they could do it without having to use the Constitution. Now, if their servers were within the United States, that would have been a different story. That's a different conversation. Completely different conversation. Now you could actually sue these people for doing what they're doing, you know, and try and tell them that they are prohibiting freedom of speech issues. All these issues come up. I think it's funny though, because Blankenship or people like these would take down African Stream for the spreading and the dissemination of information. But you have so much streams of anti-African sentiment on the same streams online, disinformation all day long, running 24/7. And these sites, these streams, these YouTube channels are never taken down. Never taken down. He don't even have a conversation about it. Matter of fact, you could talk about how Haitians eating cats all day online and dogs. And how these Africans are a bunch of savages doing all these, and these people are free to operate within the empire. But when it comes to the real dissemination of information, all these guys are communists. You know, we don't want these guys to spread too much truths to the American people or the American population because we don't want them to be properly informed. It's interesting. It's interesting how the plantation actively works to protect itself. Needless to say, if I was these guys, there are two options they have. I would use. Either you bring your servers from outside of the United States, bring them into the United States, and then make it a freedom of speech issue. I don't know if it's too late to do that, or you use the crypto model where you disseminate, you decentralize, which means that all of your writers, all of your presenters, they have their own channels now. You know, wherever they are in the world, they have their own channels now. And you just give them the information, you set up their platforms, and then you're no longer centralized. It's not only one target the government have to aim at. You have many different targets now because they're all over the world, with different servers in different places. I don't think the government, usually the government is very slow to react and very bulky, you know, but if you decentralize it and follow a kind of crypto-like model, I think it'll be very difficult to scrutinize who is saying what and not allowing certain channels to be pervasive over the internet, these kinds of streams. I think that they should look in a more decentralized model as opposed to one specific centralized African stream, because ultimately at the end of the day, the information is more important than the logo. The information is more important than the logo. And since we are fighting an ideological war, which has never really ended with the United States and Russia, by the way, they may not be engaged in a physical war, but they are sure engaged in an ideological war. That's never stopped. But we have our own ideological war against both of these Western powers. So if I was them, strategically, I would try to decentralize my presenters and still get the information out there. on the web. If I was to react to something like this, but I'll leave it there, Coco.
I appreciate that, Buana. In the chat, Kid on 7 says, I am being censored right now. He says Elon Musk is a bore. Absolutely. Jose say he's working, so he's not that active for now. I appreciate that you came through, Jose. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says the solution is money. There has to be major funding to get a BB Toomey to be big. I know some will disagree that it doesn't matter to be popular, but mass media is quite literally about popularity. I wouldn't be one of those who disagrees. I've been talking about that on here for a minute now. We have, as Black Eagles African people, we got to put up or shut up, man. We got to start funding the things that we really not just want, but need. Trigger Happy goes on and say the money should be controlled by strong leaders in order to avoid corruption. This is essentially some aspects of what Gavi did. You need wealth to get this running. Absolutely. He says, to what Buano will say, he says, and it's honestly the smart thing to do in terms of controlling, speech. Of course, they're going to be hypocritical. This is their playground, and they are never consistent, but it's always about power. Lastly, Trigger says, so a smart nation just understands that it is about identity curation and the control of information to make sure their people have good and healthy information for the benefit of the collective. Good stuff. If you have any more comments in the chat, anyone, put them up. I'll put them up on the screen for others to see as well. But this whole thing, when I saw it, I posted this onto the community tab, and I said, remember how this started. The thing is, we talked about it on Shoot the Breeze. These guys remember there was a journalist in America, a Black guy, who reached out to African streams and accused them of propaganda, misinformation and propaganda. And that was the beginning of this here, in my estimation. When I posted this, some of you responded. Only time I say, shout out to Oni. He says, what they give, they take. Yoshu says, these people are not playing with us, what we think is a game. Well stated. Brother Bakari was the first to come. He said, things like this is why we have to become the serious people. And that's the thing. We can talk and talk and talk, but if we're not putting up the funding for these types of things, that talk is cheap. That talk is cheap. And that's the difficulty with doing the work for the Black community worldwide at that, is you need to have the funding. And I know there's some grifters who have done foolishness out there, but forget about that. When you look at African Stream, they do work. They do good work in terms of presenting us information from the continent and stuff like that. We got to support that stuff. I'm going to reach out to them actually and see how they can be helped. In the meantime, though, does anyone else here have any last thoughts on this prompt?
I want to say something really quickly. So when they say freedom of speech, right? So basically what that means is that you can't be prosecuted by the government, right? So what they did, right, is Anthony Blinken said this statement. So nobody from Africa Stream is being indicted by the State Department. The problem is that Google is a private company, and they have the right to take whatever they want off, as they see fit. So that's how they skirt around the freedom of speech thing. Technically, the First Amendment protects you from the government, not from a private company.
You are right. That's true. That's true.
So that's how they get around stuff like this. So that's just like, in America, you could have the Ku Klux Klan march down the street. You could have we could have whatever people down the street, and that speech would be protected. They won't be prosecuted, but they can remove a video off of YouTube, or they could take it off of Facebook because those are private entities. So that's what he did, and he kind of said that in such a way, because let's be honest, Google is working for the state. You know, these government, that's probably why, again, they hate TikTok so much. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all of these entities, all these corporations, when the government asks for it, they'll stop it, right? So when Anthony Blinken made his untrue statement, that was his little wink, wink, hey, get rid of these niggas, right? Because that's a problem, which is why, because they're talking too much. They're too loud. They're bringing too much attention to our crimes, right? But it's not going to work because it doesn't matter how much you try to close off the information or how much you try to control the flow of information. The truth always comes out.
Well said, Black Steel. Thank you for that. In the chat, Trigger Happy says, which is exactly why freedom of speech is not real when they say that, because the economic system is too freeform and can be controlled by individuals with major capital. But let's not forget, he says, those individuals are connected to the state in order to protect the interests of capitalists. I think that's a good last word to have on that prompt. So let's keep our eyes on this. Let's be vigilant. Let's try to change these circumstances, not just for African Stream, but even in promoting our own voices here as well. By the way, they always bring up this Kremlin talk and Russian bots and all this stuff, especially around election times too. If there's nothing else to say here, let's go to Shooter Breeze topic number 2.